Okay, today I wanted to talk a little bit about Superman, but more specifically, all the Superman variants, the various retellings of this classic story. Superman, obviously, is still to this day probably the most popular comic book character or hero variant in existence. And it's been so for, approaching like 80 years or so now. So let's talk about the core Superman, this idea of God as man, which is really what he is. His meaning was really rooted in hope, compassion, power restrained by his ethics. Superman is the answer to the ancient riddle, what if the strongest being on earth was also the kindest? His power is unmatched, but his soul is humble, and he takes on, through the storytelling, a Christ-like figure. The Moses story, right? This is the immigrant God who chooses love over dominion. Now, looking at the name Superman, obviously meaning above or beyond, and man representing humanity. So he is beyond man or above man. And this is a clear echo of Nietzsche's Übermensch. But the twist is that the Übermensch was about transcending morality to create one's own values, whereas Superman does the opposite. He internalizes human morality and becomes a servant of it. So Superman is the American rejection of nihilism, a God who chooses humility over domination. Now, Superman was in some ways a response to fascism. He debuted in 1938 before World War II, but during the rise of Hitler, Mussolini, and Franco. And the name Superman existed in Nazi propaganda, but the creators flipped that script. And again, the creators were two Jewish immigrants or sons of immigrants who were living in Cleveland. They created Superman, who punches Nazis, who protected the vulnerable, and stood for justice. Their Superman was anti-Hitler. He was anti the Übermensch. This was fascism as it was pretended to be rooted in compassion, is how they really came to it. Looking further at him, the Clark Kent name, this is cultural code. Clark meaning soft, rural, Anglo-American. It's very much like Tom or Will. Kent meaning plain or unassuming, and also the real name of U.S. county and the symbol of this American heartland. The deeper cut is that Clark Kent is not the disguise. Superman is disguised. Superman is the public face, whereas Clark is the private man. Kal-El plays Superman to inspire, but he is Clark at his core. And we think of Clark as being a moral anchor, this ethical tether. He is cultural camouflage. Now, the era, of course, was the 30s, and this is right when Hitler had annexed Austria, and we're seeing other states that would fall later. Fascism was on the rise. The Great Depression was really just coming to an end, and World War II had not officially begun, but it was brewing. In the American context, racism, anti-Semitism, and isolationism were rampant. The American dream was still inspirational, but it wasn't reality. So comics were an entertainment for poor and working class youth. Superman was born to a world screaming for hope and terrified of war. And being a product of these two Jewish immigrants, they created a myth from their perspective. Krypton's destruction was an allegory for fleeing Europe to this rise of fascism. His secret identity was a simulation in plain sight. He has Moses parallels. He's sent in a vessel. He's raised by others. He grows up to liberate the oppressed. And even his real name, Kal-El, has Hebrew echoes. El meaning God, and Kal could be seen as being voice or light or vessel. So in a lot of ways, what they're saying is the voice of God or the light of God. It's not very subtle. This is a core of who he is.